facades grim, forbidding, the house is never dry. The windows cracked and grimy, repelling passers-by. But within there is a welcome and boundless charity, a home from home for the homeless. It is Simon Hostel, Charlotte Key. Men who have lost the battle against the pressures of this life, who are bruised, bemused, and battered by endless stress and strife. Therein find a shelter, and though outcasts they may be, they find new hope and succor in the Simon Hostel, Charlotte Key. Therein, young boys and girls provide a meal, a warm bed, a ready smile, a handshake. They walk the very way that Christ himself did tread. Saint Simon they exemplify, they give their service free. A credit to all mankind is the Simon Hostel, Charlotte Key. Their charity is endless, their outlook sane and bright, and they gladly give their service throughout the day or night. Old Limerick should feel very proud, and I invite all to come and see a witness that is Christ-like in the Simon Hostel, Charlotte Key.
Well, you certainly, I'm sure, brother, must have met a fair share of broken down and out people in this place, because it's one of the most appallingly desperate houses I think I've ever seen. It's an awful thought to think that human beings have to keep their lives here, have to live their lives, and how it must be, for you, it must be torturous, or is it?
Well, it is, but I have a very strong bond of sympathy for such men. And I know they think themselves that they've come to a comparatively good way of life when they come into this hostel, because many of them have been dossing out and sleeping in old motor cars, and many of them are on the run from the law. Many of them have spent terms in mental hospitals and so on. And this is their home, this is their sanctuary. And there is a sense of warmth when they're all here together at night that is beyond description. I count it as a great privilege to come here and work among the poor men, because, as I have entitled my little book of poems there, But for the Grace of God Go I, when I see a man staggering up the stairway here, and as I stand at the door at night admitting the men, when I see each man come along, I see the image of Brother Stephen there, and I also see a facet, an image of our divine Lord himself and of God, man's creator.
Certain other places that give help, you mentioned one earlier on, the Morning Star, tend to have a certain number of rules for their down and outs. You know, you've got to do a certain number of things.
Yes.
And they've got to have certain problems. Now, do you have any of these personal rules for these men? Do you just accept any man who comes in here and needs you?
We accept any man who is absolutely destitute, who is needed for a bed for the night, providing he hasn't got a home within the vicinity. And one very steadfast rule is that they mustn't bring in alcoholic drinks with them. If they have any bottles in their possession, we take them from them at the door and we return them back to them in the morning.
And how do you cope then? Because if a man is an alcoholic, he's going to find it very hard for one whole night to do without that drink. So do you have dreadful problems in that area?
No, I think he lives in hope of having the drink in the morning, and he knows it's in safe custody.
Now, we're sitting at a table which is obviously set for a meal with bread on it and now cups and sauces on the usual plates. What meal is it set for?
It is set for the evening meal. The evening meal begins about 6:45, and it continues on until the morning, until 9 a.m.
What does that mean?
It gradually changes from soup to tea in the morning and porridge. But the cafeteria, the kitchen, is opened all night long.
So they're coming in at all hours, all night. You don't close the doors during the night at any time?
The door is actually closed, but the bell is always in action. And just the press of the bell, and there's always somebody to go to the door and admit the person who wants to come in.
The beds are made upstairs, brother, and the place has obviously been cleaned, and somebody must have done all this. Now, who has done all this morning?
I make the beds with the help of Michael Daly, who is full-time here in the hostel. And Brother Anthony does the cooking. He prepares the breakfast, and he's a very, very good cook. He's of Italian extraction and has a great love for the culinary art.
Now, it seems very depressing that this is the age of 1974 and we're sitting here in this desperately derelict house with human beings who need this sort of help. And you're giving it because obviously the sort of help isn't available anywhere else. The state isn't giving it. Have you, brother, ever approached the state and asked them for help?
We've been promised a new hostel within a very short time. The hostel we are sitting in at the moment is in a very precarious condition. It has a tremendous fire hazard, and the fire chief is very concerned about it. But we hope to have a new hostel within at least a year and a half. We have to find £20,000 towards the building of the new hostel, and the authorities have guaranteed us another 20,000.
On top of the 20 that you must have yourselves?
Yes, that's right.
And if you can't get your 20,000, are you without a hostel?
We're confident of getting the 20,000, even if we have to rob the banks.